court is in session again tonight, and heaven is ruling on the truth you have been carrying for far too long. Chosen one, before this word closes, the name, the strategy, the motives, and the hidden agenda of the woman who tried to turn everyone against you will be exposed, and every voice that was misled will be brought back into alignment with what is real. Listen to me. The truth has not been silent. Heaven has been gathering evidence for years. Every whispered lie, every distorted story, every softened glance and sharpened tongue has been recorded in a courtroom no human can access. And tonight the prosecution rests. The defense has no more material. The judge is about to read the verdict, and the verdict in this matter is full exoneration. The woman did not win. The campaign did not succeed. The story she wrote did not become the permanent record. The permanent record is held by a God who sees in secret, and what he has written cannot be rewritten by the loudest voice in the room. Hear me carefully. What you thought was your social death was actually heaven's protection. What looked like abandonment by friends was the quiet removal of alliances that would have strangled your next chapter. What looked like betrayal was the surface result of a hidden legal proceeding that was already being litigated in your favor. The truth is not on trial. You are not on trial. Your name has already been cleared in heaven's courtroom. Tonight's declaration is simply the public reading of a ruling that heaven had already signed. Now stay with me. I need to name something plainly. The woman who did this was not operating alone. There was spiritual architecture behind the campaign. There was hidden agenda disguised as concern. There was calculated effort hidden behind tears. Heaven saw it before you felt it. Heaven tracked every seed of accusation before it ever reached a willing ear. None of it was invisible. None of it was unprotected. Heaven does not need your defense. Heaven is defending you. And the exposure arriving tonight is not gossip. It is justice. It is revelation. It is the public reading of a file that heaven has held in secret until the right hour arrived. And the right hour is now. Now here's something that will change the atmosphere over your life this week. People who believed the lies against you are beginning to question what they absorbed. People who believed the framed version of you are now unsettled by small inconsistencies that do not line up. People who abandoned you are beginning to feel strange without you in their life, and they do not yet understand why. Heaven is rearranging loyalties. Heaven is adjusting ears. Heaven is unsettling the ones who absorbed slander without investigation. And their unsettledness is the first sign of restoration breaking into the open. Do not chase vindication. Do not confront. Do not perform outrage. Stay quiet. Heaven handles truth exposure better than any human rebuttal. Let heaven do what heaven does best. Let the witnesses come forward on their own. Let the testimonies shift on their own. Let the guilty lose their composure on their own. Your only job is to remain honest, remain soft in your spirit, and not pick up a weapon you were never meant to carry. The courtroom belongs to heaven. The verdict belongs to heaven. The exposure belongs to heaven. Heaven will not let any weapon formed against you prosper, and that weapon was formed against you, formed with precision, formed with intent, formed with a deceptive face, but heaven has now overruled its formation. The weapon has been stripped of its permission. The voice behind it is being exposed, and the people who elevated that voice are now nervously stepping down. Some of the people who turned against you will look at you and avoid eye contact. Some will send strange messages. Some will try to re-enter your life with weak explanations. Some will go silent, because the weight of the exposure has exceeded their ability to manipulate the narrative. Heaven does not need you to expose the woman. Heaven is exposing her through the natural rearrangement of relationships, through the quiet withdrawal of support from her campaign, and through the obvious unraveling of the version of you that she put into circulation. Now hear me, chosen one. There is a detail I have not touched yet, and it will change your posture this week. The exposure that is coming is bigger than the woman herself. There were enablers. There were voices who believed her without asking you a single question. There were influencers who shared her version of you without prayer, without cross-examination, without even the courtesy of asking, what is the other side of this? Those voices are being held accountable too. They are not the main defendant, but they cannot escape the verdict. Heaven is exposing the structure of the betrayal, not just the personality of the betrayer. And when that structure is exposed, the door to your restoration opens wider than it ever could have, if only the woman had been removed. Hear this. This season is not just about personal vindication. It is about a reordering of truth in your entire relational atmosphere. The lies were systemic. The exposure will be systemic. Heaven is pulling up every root that was planted in secret by the enemy, and what surfaces will be the clean soil your next season is supposed to grow in. Hear something that matters. When this verdict is finalized, several relationships will not fully recover. Some friendships will not return to their original shape. Some families will not fully heal. Some workplaces will not fully reabsorb you. That is not failure. That is heaven removing what was never meant to remain. Heaven is replacing what was lost, and the replacement will outrank what was removed. You will not only recover, you will be elevated into relationships that were reserved for this exact post-verdict season. Now hear me. I want to address something personal about this trial. There may have been moments where you wondered whether the woman who did this might be right. There may have been moments where the loneliness of being isolated convinced you that the lie was the truth. There may have been moments where you picked up the lie yourself, examined it, and tried it on for size. I want you to release that tonight. The lie was never your size. The lie never fit your spirit. The lie was tailored by the enemy to look believable to outside eyes, but inside your spirit, you always knew it was not yours. Tonight that settled knowing returns to your bones, and you stand again in your own name, in your own truth, in your own identity. Heaven restores what the enemy tried to steal, and tonight, chosen one, heaven restores your confidence. There is a layer I need to surface before the prayer. The woman did this because she was threatened. She saw something in you that unsettled her own future. She saw favor on your name that she could not obtain. She saw favor she could not manufacture. She saw favor she could not replicate. So she tried to remove you instead of grow with you. That is the root. That is the hidden motive. That is the truth her campaign cannot survive. And heaven is exposing not just what she did, but why. And the why will permanently dissolve any remaining fear that the lie is still alive. Now let me pray over you before I close. Father, I lift up every chosen one tonight who has been falsely accused, falsely isolated, falsely stripped of reputation by someone they did not expect to wound them. I speak the verdict of full exoneration over their name. I speak the exposure of the hidden agenda over the soul who pursued this campaign. I speak restoration of reputation over every public relationship. I speak confidence back into their spirit. I speak truth back into their story. I speak loyalty shifts in the people they did not even ask to shift. I break every lingering effect of the lie over their mind, emotions, finances, and calling. I release supernatural vindication that no human can expedite or replicate. And I thank you that the woman never had the final word. The truth does. The truth is you. And tonight, chosen one, the truth is reading its verdict aloud, in the authority of Jesus Christ. Amen. Before I close, like this video as your declaration that truth has won in your life. Comment I receive the verdict if heaven is speaking to you tonight. Share this with another chosen one carrying a false narrative, and subscribe to this channel because heaven is not finished exposing and restoring. More verdicts are coming. More truth are surfacing. Stay connected. If this word has been steady confirmation for you, you can stand with this ministry through Ko-Fi in the pinned comment below. Stand with the truth. And there is one more thing I must surface before I seal this prayer. The exposure of the woman who turned everyone against you is reaching a new layer that nobody expected. The exposure is no longer just about the lies she told. The exposure is now about what the lies were protecting. The lies were protecting her own insecurity. The lies were protecting her own fear. The lies were protecting her own unhealed wounds about not being chosen, not being seen, not being affirmed. And heaven is not just exposing her actions, heaven is exposing her reasons, because when her reasons are exposed, her campaign loses its foundation. She cannot sustain a campaign that has lost its foundation. The exposure is dismantling her story from the inside out, and you will see it, and you will not need to point it out. The world will see it on its own. Now stay with me. There is a layer about the voices she misled. The voices she used as accomplices were not all evil. Many were deceived, many were tired, many were afraid of disagreeing with her because of relational pressure, social cost, or spiritual manipulation. Heaven is calling those voices to a different examination now. They are beginning to feel unsettled. They are beginning to feel strange when they are around her. They are beginning to feel the distance between what she told them about you and what their conscience has been quietly trying to whisper. And slowly, those voices are starting to return. Some will bring apology. Some will bring confession. Some will bring silence. Not because they are unrepentant, but because the exposure has been so weighty that they do not yet know how to approach you. Heaven is not done with them. Heaven is still softening them. And when the softening is complete, they will move toward you with trembling and humility. Stay with this. There is a third layer. The exposure of the woman is not just about your vindication. The exposure is about a generational pattern being broken. This pattern has been running through your family line. It has been running through your relational circles. It has been running through your assignments in ministries. The pattern is this. Someone rises to influence and uses that influence to isolate, to slander, to discredit, to dissolve the credibility of someone else in order to elevate their own platform. The pattern is breaking tonight. The exposure of the woman is not just touching her life. The exposure is breaking the pattern that allowed her to act like this for so long. And when the pattern breaks, the spirit that empowered the pattern loses legal access to your lifeline. The pattern dies. The spirit loses its foothold. The exposure becomes the weapon of liberation for your entire generational house. Hear this with all of the weight your spirit can carry. The exposure of the woman tonight is not a small event. The exposure is a multi-generational victory. The exposure is the breaking of a pattern that has been undermining the credibility and the calling of every chosen one in your family line. And as the pattern breaks, new dynamics will surface in your family. New voices will rise up. New courage will surface. New leadership will emerge. The exposure of the woman is a doorway into a multi-generational restoration, and the doorway is opening tonight. Stay with this. The woman is also going to start to feel the emotional weight of what she did. And although she may never articulate it to you directly, she will lose sleep. She will lose appetite. She will lose clarity. She will lose friendships. And as those losses stack, the lightness in your own life will strengthen. The contrast will become visible. Your peace will become louder than her campaign. And heaven will continue to use the contrast as a witness, not for your vindication in the eyes of others, but for the Lord's vindication in the spirit realm. Now hear me carefully. There is one final thing before the prayer. As the exposure reaches its climax, you will be tempted to feel vindication in a way that almost looks like victory. Be careful. Stay in the posture of forgiveness. Stay in the posture of mercy. Stay in the posture of grace. Even as the exposure delivers justice, carry the spirit of the one who forgave on the cross. The exposure of the woman is not to satisfy your revenge. The exposure of the woman is to satisfy heaven's justice, and heaven's justice is always paired with mercy. Let your spirit be clean. Let your lips be clean. Let your response be clean, and the Lord will continue to honor your clean spirit with more exposure, more vindication, more restoration. Stay clean, stay clean, stay clean. Now let me pray over you before this session closes. Father, I thank you for the full exposure happening tonight. I speak the breaking of the generational pattern over every chosen one. I silence the voice of the woman and dissolve her campaign. I reclassify every voice that was misled. I release discernment over the soul receiving this word. I release mercy, not retaliation. I seal the exposure as a multi-generational liberation. I declare that what she did will not reproduce. I declare that what she stole will not reproduce. I declare that what she tried to terminate will now expand and multiply and bear fruit for the glory of the Lord. I seal this in the authority of Jesus Christ. Amen. And there is one more layer I want to name before I seal this prayer tonight. The exposure of the woman is going to reach a specific person in your life this week. Someone near the campaign is going to lose their ability to continue. They are going to look at her in a room, and something will be different in their eyes. The way they used to believe her without question, they will no longer be able to. The way they used to share her version of you as fact, they will quietly stop. They are going to feel a heaviness in their spirit in her presence. They are going to feel the kind of unsettlement that cannot be explained by mood. It is the heaviness of divine exposure. Heaven is releasing that heaviness over the platform she built. And one by one the platform is losing its voice. The exposure is converting the platform into a witness. The exposure is reclaiming the platform for truth, and the divine residue of the exposure will restore your reputation in places you have not even thought to check. Heaven is thorough. Heaven is final. And the exposure today will outlast every apology she could apologize. And there is one final word I want to seal over you tonight. Chosen one. There is a generation in your lineage that absorbed lies without enough data. They believed what was said about you without asking the follow-up question. They absorbed the campaign without checking the source. And heaven in its mercy is also bringing a correction to them. Not a hard correction, a gentle correction. A correction that comes when their eyes finally meet your eyes, and there is no longer any distance between you and the truth. They will come to you one at a time, gently, with humility. And the Lord told me that you will need discernment to receive each one according to their own substance. Some will be deeply sincere, some will be deeply afraid, some will be the Lord's own correction returning to you. And in that moment, the Lord's mercy will meet your discernment, and the redemption of those relationships will produce a sweetness that the harm itself never imagined. Heaven is not only restoring you, heaven is also restoring their sight as they encounter you again. And the restoration will be tender. Receive what the Lord is sending, and let the Lord sort the rest. And before I seal this prayer, I want to give you one final word, chosen one. The exposure of the woman is not only about truth rising to the surface. The exposure is also about a specific kind of darkness being stripped from your relational field. The night will not be able to hide in your proximity anymore. The whisper campaign will not be able to sustain itself in your family tree anymore. The covert slander will lose its platform in your assignment territory anymore. And a new atmosphere of honesty will replace the old atmosphere of suspicion. Heaven is finishing the work. Heaven is closing the loopholes the woman used. Heaven is removing every dark alcove she hid her campaign in. And when you walk into the next room, the room will feel lighter. The room will feel visible. The room will feel accounted for. And the accounting is part of your healing. The Lord told me to remind you before I close this prayer. The Lord told me that the lie has a fixed lifespan, and the lifespan is closing tonight. What the woman tried to make permanent, the Lord is making temporary. What the woman tried to make foundational, the Lord is dissolving. What the woman tried to make original, the Lord is exposing as imitation. The falsehood was always the copy. The truth was always the original. And heaven is restoring the original over the copy tonight. Receive the restoration. Receive the lightness. Receive the seasons of clean speech and clean witness. The Lord is restoring your relational field, and the restoration is final.